So welcome to the Regina District Industry Education Council Career Spotlight. I'm Brian Wright from the Southeast Cornerstone Public School Division. Today we are meeting with Marshall Holzer, who is a battery operator with Saturn Oil. So Marshall, thanks very much for joining us today. Give me a bit of an idea what it is you do as a battery operator.
So as a battery operator, you look after all the pump jacks in the field. And everywhere that those pump jacks pump to, they pump to what we call a battery. And that's where all your oil separation, your gas separation, and water separation happens. And those facilities can range from, really big to really small, but you are the one responsible in handling it all. So you can be dealing with a $500,000 facility, you can be dealing with a $6 million facility. There's a lot of variances there, I guess. So,
right. And what do you have to do? What does that job involve?
So when you're at the wells, you are making sure that they're pumping fluid up to surface, that the jack is going round and round. You're responsible for making sure that everything's up to snuff, that it's not dirty, you're not leaking anywhere. And from there on, you move on to your next well and so on and so forth. And then at the batteries, you're looking to do the same thing. You're responsible for making sure there's no leaks, make sure everything's working properly. You've got instrumentation to deal with, you've got electrical, you've got the whole what's the word for it? But you got the whole thing at your disposal. You're not necessarily expected to fix everything yourself all the time, but you need to be able to recognize the issue of what's possibly going on. So I've always said that an operator is a jack of all trades, master of none.
But that's important because you have to be the guy that recognizes there's an issue. Then you make the phone call to get the person out to repair it.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yep.
So when you started, how many pump jacks would you have been in charge of?
When I first started, there was about 60 to 70 pump jacks. I had 5 different batteries, and you're putting on anywhere from 400 kilometers to 700 kilometers in a day.
So you're on the road a lot then?
Yes. Yep. And in all weather.
Right. So it didn't matter if it's 40 below or 30 above, you're traveling and doing it because those pump jacks never stop.
Correct.
How many days a week would that job normally entail?
So it depends. Every company runs it a little bit differently, but I would say the standard across the business would either be a 10 on, 4 off schedule, or a 9 days on, 5 days off schedule. So you either work, you always come back on a Tuesday, and you're either going off the following Wednesday or the following Thursday.
Okay. And then somebody else looks after those pumps when you're not there.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So your original first 7 days on of working, you're on call 24 hours a day, and you need to be available to go at any point in time.
Right.
So that's it ends up being a 7 days on, 7 days off call schedule.
That's pretty intense. Like 24/7, you really means 24/7. You're out there, it doesn't matter day or night. What special training do you have to do that job? What did you learn?
There was a lot of on the job experience that you pick up from others and get trained by others in the industry. There's a lot of things that coming through high school you don't think are going to be pertain to what you're doing, but simple things as math, right? Figuring out a tank volume or a tank factor of how to figure out what kind of volumes are in your tank. Whoever thought that they were going to need that, right? And lots of times you're coming across that and it's like, well, I was the guy that said I'm never going to use that. Turns out I am.
Right? It's a real thing, right? And you're applying that knowledge all the time. Mm-hmm. What kind of equipment do you work with when you're in the field?
Your main equipment you're dealing with is your truck. your truck is your lifeline. That is, if it's -40 out and you get stuck out in a storm, that's that's your warm spot, right? That's what you're living in. So you always have your spare warm clothes, everything. You got all your tools in there. Your toolbox is filled out with pipe wrenches, flat wrenches, saws, screwdrivers, tow ropes, obviously, fire extinguishers. You're kind of equipped with a little bit of everything. And then so you can deal with a pump jack, the equipment on the pump jack you're dealing with, or they have the motors on the jacks. Test separators, so where the well pumps to, so you can tell how much oil, how much water it makes. So your landowner or your mineral rights owners are getting paid properly, the government's getting paid properly, and your company's getting paid properly. You're in charge of giving those numbers. So in those buildings, you've got air compressors and digital flow monitors that need to be, make sure that they're working properly. So you're given the tools to work on all of that as well.
And when you get, is any of this stuff automated anymore, or is it's still all hands-on?
There's a lot of automation going on too. So out in the field right now, I can look at a camera and see any well that we have out there. There's wells that I can control, all from the computer here.
Which is part of how it's changed in the last 20, 30 years, right?
Huge. Yep.
What would be some unknown duties of your job, like things that no one would ever think about?
Ooh, unknown duties would probably be the late night on call. A lot of people forget about that and don't realize that 2 a.m, it's not an easy wake up call. and
who's calling? Is that a machine that's calling you at that point saying, hey, there's a problem out here? Or is it a person, or how does that work?
That's a machine calling. So it's an automated system that something has triggered it to call out, and you're the first line of defense, essentially. So you get called out, you go there and try and figure out what's going on. And some places are very automated and they can pinpoint the issue exactly and say, this is what's wrong, come out and fix me. The next place that there's not as much automation will call and say, here's a generic alarm, something's wrong, come out and figure it out.
Right.
It could be 8 different things.
And how far a distance would you travel?
Depends as well. Usually you're not anywhere closer than 20 minutes to your hometown.
Right.
So for me, it's Estevan. I'm my closest stuff would be about a half hour. My furthest stuff that, I'm not the battery operator per se, but the area that I oversee is 2.5 hours.
Which is a long distance if there's an alarm going off and it's 40 below outside, right?
Yeah. So it's a guy's kind of had both, and usually you want everyone within a half hour, 40 minutes is the range you want them from their facilities.
What would be some stressors or challenges about your job?
Big stressor is just the responsibility you have to, say, get a facility up and running if it goes down. If in the -40s, the time crunches you get of in -40, if this is left down for more than 3-4 hours, it's probably not coming back because it's going to be frozen rock solid. So you're the one having to answer for that, of why didn't it come back on, or what happened, right? So you want everything to go as smooth as possible. Sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of salaries and benefits are we looking at? And not specifics, but generically here.
Generic. So there's 2 kinds of battery operators in the oil field. There's an employee battery operator, or you can be a contract battery operator. Okay. So contractors are paid a certain salary to run their own truck, put their own fuel. They have their own insurances, everything. We don't have a lot of contract operators, but there is lots of companies that they run strictly contract operators, and they'll see a higher hourly wage. They'll be in that, mid 50s to $70 an hour running their own truck, which is always looks great from the back end of the hourly wage, but you need to take into consideration a lot of different factors of, your kilometers you're putting on and how much you're actually going to be working. And that, not talking down on it, it's a great way of doing it too, right? You just got to make sure you have all the information first before going into it, right? You see $70 an hour, just check to see what kind of an operator it is.
Yeah.
Now, an employee operator, you're going to make anywhere from $29 an hour to $50 an hour. But you're not supplying your own truck and you're not supplying your own fuel. So that's why you see the difference in wage, right?
For sure.
So, and your benefits are companies pretty standard around the board are doing 80% to 100% benefits.
And there's, what are the, like, how long have you been with the company doing battery operating right now?
So I've been with this company for about a little over 6 months. So our area got bought out mid-June.
Okay.
So, talk about a little bit of a stressor there of you got a wife and kids at home and your area is being bought out. You don't know 100% if they're going to take you on or not, right?
Right.
So
how long have you been doing this as a career though?
Since 2011. So roughly 14 years.
So obviously there's a longevity in the job if you are a good employee.
Yep.
Where else can you move once you've had this training? What other jobs could you get into?
That's a good question. From this aspect, you can do a lot of things within the oil field, like knowing your batteries and how to operate a battery puts you into really good chemical rep. The guys that supply and they troubleshoot a lot of the issues, processing fluid. You can, in the crew industry of, supervisors or consultants, when they look after big jobs, and makes you a well-rounded employee of, back to what I said earlier, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. So you've dealt with everything and you get a little bit of everything, right? And I think it makes you a very valuable asset to other industries, even of, hey, I've dealt with all of this and been able to successfully do it, right?
Right. What is the job futures in this industry? Is there lots of jobs for battery operators, or is it a shortage, or where are we at as an industry?
I would say there's a mild shortage. There's battery operating jobs out there. It's hard to get one as of lately, just because companies are being a little bit more picky than what they used to be. At one point in time, if you had 2 feet in a heartbeat, everyone said you had a job. And now everyone's looking for the right fit. But to find that right fit's a little hard, so you end up being a little shorthanded sometimes.
Right. And that's part of what you're looking for when you're looking for those quality employees. What things would you be looking for as an employer if you were trying to hire a battery operator? What things would you want those employees to have? What skills?
You know what? Skills aren't always the word I like to use. I like to see examples of motivation. The person is motivated and willing to learn, and it can be something completely different of, hey, I was troubleshooting this, and it doesn't need to be mechanically inclined. but I have troubleshooting skills, and I was able to troubleshoot this whole system and work my way through it. So lots of it is, your troubleshooting skills, motivation to work, and be able to put that extra effort in. Communication skills, you need to communicate lots. We're on our phones all the time, and whether that be a text, phone call, email, Teams, you got to be able to make those phone calls and recognize if you need help or whatnot. It's a whole big process that needs to all come together, right? And no matter your experience, I always say you just need to be able to recognize a problem. You don't need to be the one to fix it all the time. It's just put that effort in to learn those little things, and eventually you will be the one fixing them. But off the bat, it just takes time. You're never going to learn everything in one day. So,
Right.
Mhm.
What's the work-life balance? You talked earlier about having, 10 days on, days off. What's it like as a battery operator when you're on call?
When you're on call, you definitely don't want to get too far away from home base. I always kind of ran like a 20-minute rule. If I'm 20 minutes away from home, that would be about as far as you want to go, because you never know. There, you could get called out. Prime example of, Christmas Day. Everyone hates working Christmas. There's been times I've been called out 4 or 5 times on Christmas Day, having to go out to work, or getting called out Christmas Eve when you're at a family function and you got to go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, but you have those 5 days off coming up.
Yeah.
So that is a comforting feeling too of, what, I got 5 days, not going to be bugged, and I get that all with my family.
So as a dad, you can still be a part of your kid's life. You can still be actively involved if they're in sports and all those things. It's just you can't go on the road trips and things when you're on call.
Yep. Every other weekend you can go.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else about battery operating you want to tell us about, Marshall?
I think for the most part, that's it. It's a really good career, and I like to call it a career. It's not just a job. It's something that has the longevity in it, and there's a lot of good perks to it of working outside, especially summertime, and just being able to enjoy the country. If you enjoy the outdoors, it's a really good job. And even if you don't enjoy the outdoors, as long as you can appreciate it, it's kind of for everyone, I would say.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk with us today. And again, any students that are watching this, go to rdiec.ca. Marshall, thanks so much for taking your time and visiting with us today.
You bet. Thank you.
Perfect.